Before we start this video, a while back I made Daredevil Season 1 talking about how sometimes doing the good things doesn't mean you get awarded the good. And I didn't expect that video to even blow up. And to be honest, having over 500 plus views, I think that is a success. So I just want to come here and just face to face say that if you watch the video, in my bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you for supporting me. And so also another thing I got to talk about is that Season 3, I skipped Season 2. Many people may wonder that why I skipped Season 2. And to be honest, I think Season 3 has a core theme that I really want to talk about. And so the core theme that I really want to talk about is the fact that failure shouldn't define who you are. So without yapping, enjoy the video.
What's the biggest mistake you ever made? Maybe you failed a class. Maybe you lost someone you cared about because of your own decisions. Maybe you walked away from an opportunity you'll never get back. Whatever it is, I think almost everyone has experienced a moment that they wish they could erase. The problem isn't that we fail. It's what's happened afterward. Failure slowly stops being something that happened to us and starts becoming who we think we are. I failed becomes I am a failure. And that's exactly where Matt Murdock is when Daredevil Season 3 begins. When we first see Matt again, this isn't the confident lawyer balancing justice inside and outside the courtroom. This is a man who's broken, physically, emotionally, spiritually. He survives, but he doesn't really believe he was supposed to. He's isolated himself from the people who love him. He's questioning everything he once believed. And he's convinced that the version of himself known as Matt Murdock deserves to stay buried. What's fascinating is that the season doesn't begin with Matt fighting Kingpin. It begins with Matt fighting himself. Because sometimes our greatest enemy isn't the person standing across from us. It's the voice in our own head telling us that we've already lost. I think that's what makes this season resonate so much. It's easy to watch superheroes overcome impossible odds. It's much harder to watch someone try to overcome themselves. Matt looks at everything that happened in his life and sees nothing but failure. The people he couldn't save, the pain he couldn't stop, the sacrifices that seemed meaningless. Every loss piles on top of the last one until he reaches a point where he doesn't see individual failures anymore. He sees himself as one. And I think that's something many of us can relate to. One bad grade suddenly means you're not smart enough. One failed relationship means you'll never be loved. One rejection convinces you that you'll never succeed. We have this incredible ability to take one chapter of our lives and convince ourselves it's the entire story. That's the trap Matt falls into. His failures stop being events, they become his identity. But if Matt represents someone trying to escape failure, Wilson Fisk represents someone who knows exactly how to exploit it. Kingpin isn't terrifying because he's the strongest person in the room. He's terrifying because he understands people. He studies them, he waits, he finds the crack that was already there and slowly widens it. He doesn't need to create insecurity. He only needs to convince people that the insecurity they already have is true. Every major character in this season is carrying something. Regret, fear, shame, doubt. Kingpin recognizes those weaknesses and quietly builds his entire strategy around them. That's why he feels so dangerous. He doesn't simply attack people. He attacks how they see themselves. And once someone believes they're already broken, they're much easier to control. No character represents this better than Benjamin Poindexter. Dex is one of the most tragic characters in the entire series because in many ways, he's a reflection of what Matt could have become. Both men experienced trauma. Both struggle with loneliness. Both desperately wanted something to believe in. The difference is that Matt had people who keep reaching out to him, even when he pushed them away. Foggy never stopped believing in him. Karen never stopped caring. Father Lambton kept trying to remind him that despair wasn't the end of his story. Dex doesn't have that. Instead, the person who gives him purpose is Fisk. That's the tragedy. Karen Page's journey reinforces this idea in a completely different way. Karen carries enormous guilt. She spends so much of her life believing that every terrible thing that happened somehow traces back to her. She can't erase her past. She can't undo her mistakes. But what makes Karen admirable isn't that she becomes perfect. It's that she keeps choosing to help people anyway. She refuses to believe that one decision determined the rest of her life. That's what redemption actually looks like. Not pretending the past never happened, not magically fixing everything, but waking up every day and deciding that your mistake don't get the final word. There is a moment later in the season that completely changes Matt's perspective. Throughout the story, he's been searching for answers that explain why suffering exists at all, why good people lose, why life can feel unfair, why failure hurts so much. He wants certainty. Instead, he realizes something much more important. You don't always get an explanation. Sometimes all you get is another chance to choose who you're going to be. And maybe that's enough. Because life isn't about controlling what happens to you. It's about deciding what happens next. The realization changes Matt. Not because his problem disappeared, not because Kingpin suddenly becomes less dangerous, but because Matt stops allowing his failure to tell him who he is. Which brings us to the final confrontation. Matt has every reason to give in to revenge. Kingpin has taken so much from him. His peace, his friendships, his reputation, his future. For a moment, it feels like ending Fisk's life would solve everything. But it wouldn't. Because if Matt lets hatred define his final choice, then every fear he had about himself becomes true. The greatest victory in Season 3 isn't that Kingpin loses. It's that Matt doesn't lose himself. He refuses to become the person he feared he already was. He chooses mercy over revenge, hope over despair, identity over failure. And that's why this season has stayed with me ever since I finished rewatching it. When people hear the word failure, they usually think about losing. But I think failure becomes dangerous only when you believe it's permanent. Every successful person you've ever admired had failed. Every person you looked up to has experienced moments where they questioned themselves. The difference isn't that they fail. It's that they refuse to stay there. That's why Daredevil Season 3 means so much to me. It isn't a real story about superheroes. It's a story about getting back up. It's a reminder that your lowest point doesn't have to become your identity. That the worst day doesn't have to become your future. That your biggest mistake doesn't get to decide who you are for the rest of your life. We spend so much of our lives believing we're only as good as our biggest success, or as worthless as our biggest failure. But this season argues something differently. Failure isn't the final chapter. It's a moment where your character is revealed. Because everyone fails, everyone breaks, everyone loses. The people we admire aren't the ones who never fails. They're the ones who found the strength to stand back up. Matt Murdock doesn't become a hero because he wins every fight. He becomes a hero because no matter how many times life knocks him down, he chooses to get back up. And maybe that's the lesson all of us need to hear. Your worst failure doesn't define you. What defines you is what you choose to do next. If you enjoy these kind of videos, be sure to like and subscribe. And until then, peace and love.